Humanity's Concord discovers Cedar Vault, the Dominion's last forge, where Splinter Admirals plan to assemble Gis Punctum, a gravitic comma that can sever every hinge relay and plunge free worlds back into darkness. Adrian Kessler sends Sentence and Spiral squads on a surgical raid, but Greywater betrays the mission, hoping to seize the weapon as leverage over the newborn alliance. Silent Eyes cripples the forge, rescues Gene Bank hostages, and turns Greywater's coup by planting Semicolon's bloodstained pauldron on the dormant core before Cedar Vault implodes. First Syntax, the new charter broadcast from Obsidian Pinion, outlaws any blade that could silence all voices, while mint farms and hinge gardens spread across liberated systems, teaching the galaxy to pause, don't stop. Years later, the station blooms into a fragrant hub of run-on resistance, and every time a gray threat rises, Sentence, or her successors, lift off to remind the stars that Earth's grammar lesson never ends. The Sirius drift smelled of ozone and regret, two scents impossible to detect in vacuum. Yet every spacer swore the stench clung to station bulkheads like residue from a crime scene the universe kept revisiting. Cargo loaders floated past enormous view windows where the scatter of wrecked Dominion hulls glittered in weak starlight, each shard a syllable in the endless story of empires gnawing at each other's throats. Above all this, perched like a carrion bird on a bent pylon, was the listening post designated Obsidian Pinion. 100 meters of jury-rigged antennae, triple-hulled HAB modules, and repurposed missile magazines pointed outward in case memory alone failed to keep predators at bay. Inside the post's central tank room, Adrian Kessler ignored the holograph data storm swarming her periphery. She kneaded her knuckles against the sconce of a rusted girder, letting tension bleed into steel. The console before her flickered, status panes filling with new spectrograms, but she forced a calm breath and closed her eyes anyway. Sleep had been rationed to 20 minutes every 6 hours since the alert bulletin flagged a potential Empire scouting node inbound, and she could feel the edges of hallucination trying to pry her skull open. One deep inhale. Ozone. One deeper exhale. Regret. Good. Still functional. The spectral feed spiked. Orange warning pillars rose across the holofield. Velocity traces that made no sense if the ship belonged to any known Dominion pattern. Adrian snapped a wrist to magnify the feed. The Doppler envelope jittered between impossible peaks, as though whatever object cut through subsector grid space was compressing time itself for pocket fuel. She muttered a curse older than the line cooks in the station's hydro-CAF. Another unsolved ghost? Not tonight. Vector this to cold room, she ordered. Her voice rasped like gravel. Long nights, chewing metal filings of worry could do that. The command traveled through the local mesh, bouncing to the station's nerve center, a cube deck 10 meters below the observation tier. There, in flickering half-light, 24 analysts parsed every heartbeat the galaxy gave off. They wore gray foam suits patched at elbows and spent shifts recording lies they prayed were hyperbole, but Adrian respected them. They kept the last candles burning in a temple no god seemed ready to guard. From the speaker butt at her collar clipped the reply. Copy. Coldroom has the vector. First glance suggests non-colonial configuration. Dimensions? The voice belonged to Masato Grimm, a savant who claimed he could trace bloodlines from gravity wakes. Adrian never doubted him. 7 clicks long, maybe half that wide, she said, fingers gliding across controls. Hull density reading like a hollow needle. Whatever this is, it's razor thin. Masato whistled low. Needle arrays are myths, Kess. Only Dominion sabotage theories talk about them. And yet the scanner disagrees. She toggled off the mic, switching to private logs. Obsidian Pinion's claws scraped through centuries of cosmic detritus nightly. But this was new script carved across old sky. She keyed an emergency script. Transmit to ERTHSBINE, code name for Sol's clandestine core network, bypassing the regional traffic waitlist. Earthspine's return ping arrived 11 minutes later, shrugging off encryption protocols like they were paper doors. It contained 2 words, Iron Sky. That was a directive with a razor edge. Authorization to initiate Strategic Contingency 17, the kind of operation no outpost commander ever expected to run outside training sims. Adrian's heart kicked. Hard enough, she felt heat burst along her sternum. She hammered commands. Low-level demons cascaded into compliance. Across the station, maglock snapped, sections depressurized, and 15 non-critical staff lost comms blind, wrenched from arguments and card games into full red alert. Sirens pulsed once then cut. Pinion's alarm schemes were built for stealth, flash only, no sound. Adrian set her jaw and opened a direct feed to Coldroom. Pull trigger on sub-level black site, she said. We barely patched the relay nodes, Masato answered. His tone carried equal parts awe and apprehension. You think Iron Sky is our weight to lift? I don't think. I read orders. Adrian toggled the feed to her personal retinas. The directives footnote scrolled. Expect infiltration attempt inside 60 standard minutes. Contain until Leviathan's brood arrive. Leviathan's brood. The phrase tasted like half-remembered fever. Everyone stationed in the drift knew the legends. A hidden navy birthed from Earth's ashes. Hulls forged in mountain caverns. Whisper machines older than the literal empire itself. But myths rarely include arrival times. Adrian's skin prickled. 37 minutes later, long-range arrays registered the thin ship's mass at 1.3 astronomical units. It wasn't merely traveling. It was slicing starwave foam like a cutter through cloth. Hollow hull meant less inertia, meaning near-instant lateral arcs. Observed motion suggested living instrumentation, something symbiotic with vacuum. Cold fear gnawed behind Adrian's lungs. This was no Dominion salvage spike. It was a specialized spear built to thread sensor nets. In the docking spire, salvage tug brewed and coughed awake under remote ignition. Crew dead sleep in bunks while autopilots flooded lines. The station AI flagged their silence as compliance. They'd follow new vector overlays out of range, dragging spent fuel rods to jettison near the local carbon sink. It felt wrong to Adrian to evacuate them autopilot, but protocol insisted. Minimal breathers inside the quarantine bubble. Masato pinged again. Containment grid still calibrating. We have microseep across Deck 9. Could be internal sabotage. He sounded steady, Masato steady, but Adrian knew the subtext. Grid failure plus infiltration equals in scenario. Deck 9 housed the station's singularity flask. Tiny, incomplete, lethal. If an enemy forced detonation inside grid space, the drift's carcass would ripple outward, maybe graze the refugee arcology on Ceres. Iron Sky wasn't just cloak. It was a potential sacrificial pyre. She rerouted power from hydroponics to magnet clamps, feeling the whole habitat hum in protest. Mint plants would freeze. Algae slurry might curdle, but they could reseed. They couldn't regrow existence. At 46 minutes, the needle ship phase skipped to 300,000 kilometers. Scanners blurred, recompiled, and found empty vacuum where the reading had been. Adrian clenched her teeth. Still inbound. Something in her memory tickled. Old human war doctrine. Skip ghosting. Use quantum shear to offset sensor echo. Appear multiple points simultaneously. But that required an impossible energy source or a slingshot anchor. She eyed the busted Dominion hull shards glimmering outside. They were laced with miniature collapsars, war reliquaries. Detonation triggers offline, but gravity still played there. A cunning infiltrator could ricochet off those fields to mask approach. Track reflective lensing, she commanded. Every microbolin in a 200K radius. Her console blossomed with vector webs, dozens of plausible approach cones converging upon pinion spin axis. At their heart, Deck 9 singularity flask. Inside cold room, Masato opened the black site lockers. A pressurized hiss revealed a payload of hibernating drones, sleek. Insectal, coated paladin/carbon dogs, last survivors of some experimental retention program buried in Earth's mountain forges. Each drone carried a monomolecular spool and enough heuristics to weave traps in micro-G corridors. He armed them, whispered a vow none of the analysts heard, and deployed them down the spinal shafts. Lights dimmed. Adrienne's lips moved. A prayer perhaps, or a curse, but only her pulse heard. Then the station's outer hull rang, a plangent toll as if struck by a cosmic drum. Impact. She keyed hull cams. Nothing visible where the knock had registered. No scorch, no fracture. It was tapping, mapping. The intruder sought seams. A ripple alarm flared. Deck 12 cryostore, compromised atmosphere drop. Cameras revealed a fissure like a zipper unsewn by heatless knives. Through it leaked darkness, not absence of light but presence of void shaped by will. She glimpsed something slipping inside, elongated, jointless, wearing starlight like second skin. 1, then 3. Masato shouted. Carbon dogs engaged. Telemetry poured across screens as drones spooled shimmering webs behind retreat points. The intruders ignored tripwires, phasing through. 2 dogs vanished offline. Adrienne's chest constricted. Whatever these things were, they danced past tech made to kill demigods. New plan, she hissed. We give them Deck 9, but we empty the flask first. She overrode safeties, key to transfer, vent singularity mass into sacrificial cask ejected via mid-axis rail. The process normally required 5 cross-signed codes and 40 minutes. She burned that tree to 20 seconds, melting authorizations into raw root access. Emergency klaxons flashed purple, containment breach initiated by command. Good. The intruders might chase the decoy. But they didn't. They changed heading. Direct path now for Deck 6, command tank room. For her. Corridors teemed with silence as Adrian unlashed her sidearm, a coil pistol older than she'd been alive. Charge indicator glowed 1/4. Enough for last arguments. She sealed the tank room hatch manually, thick bolt slamming home, then disabled all remote overrides. Footsteps, no, whispers of motion, slid along outer hull plating. She laid palm to steel, felt the vibration of cosmic wind carrying unknown lullabies. Then the intruders phased through the door. Reality bent like heated glass, and 3 forms stepped into fluorescence. Not suits, not armor, adaptive biosheath shimmering black mercury. Their faces were featureless plates except for traceries of faint blue circuits. They looked human only in silhouette. 2 arms, 2 legs, heads cocked in eerie unison. "Welcome," Adrian said, surprising herself with steady voice. The lead figure spoke, a chord of layered frequencies rather than phonemes. Her implants transcribed. "Let the iron sky break." Iron sky. The directive's code name wasn't Earth's, it was theirs. Adrian's realizations cascaded. The needle ship, the skip ghosting, the infiltration, they weren't Dominion. They were brood of Leviathan, humanity's own vanguard, field testing Pinion as staging ground. Earthspine's order to quarantine wasn't defense, it was to prevent panic when allies arrived unannounced. She holstered the coil pistol, heart thrashing. "Stand down," she said to Cold Room on open mic. "They're ours." Masato's gasp crackled back. The intruders stood silent, analyzing her gesture. Then plates liquefied into familiar armor segments, their helmets peeled back. 3 faces, one dark as basalt with tattooed semicolons across the brow, one pale with solder scars, one stripped of hair, with eyes that held centuries. They nodded once. "Trust established." "Command passes to you," Adrian offered. The basalt soldier smiled faintly. "Command belongs to nobody. We share the sentence." They tapped a wrist beacon. Deck 9's flash command reversed, the decoy rail canceling, singularity mass safe again. Across Obsidian Pinion's lattice, light shifted from quarantine red to dawn white. Hydroponic pumps rebooted, mint plants sighed thawing breath. Outside, salvage tug brute and cut engines and drifted home. In Adrian Kessler's chest, oxygen resumed its dialogue with blood. "We have work," said the hairless envoy. "Dominion listening arrays are weaker than advertised. With Pinion alive, serious drift becomes nerve for next hammer stroke." He pointed to the growing needle ship silhouette on external sensors. Its hull now bloomed with petal-shaped arrays unfolding, relay dishes bigger than city blocks. Adrian asked, "Name of that ship?" "Sentence," he answered. "Because every empire ends with one." He offered a data wand. "Insert this, broadcast to the fringe. Tell them Earth remembers." She took it, warmth bleeding through cold metal. Iron sky indeed, a roof hammered into spear. She smiled, for first time in long months, a raw bright grin. Outside, stars witnessed new punctuation carved across the galaxy's black parchment, an ellipsis trailing toward dawn. The first pulse from Sinence's newborn relay cracked across subspace like a knuckle against old bone. Stations in the Palladium Verge, all once Dominion outposts now operating on barter electricity and rumor, heard the ping and halted mid-shift. The Q tone, a rising triad tuned to mirror the Leviathan's last recorded reactor chord, sluiced through cable nests, set coffee cups trembling, and woke half-decommissioned AI demons in basements that had not uttered code lines since the Empire outlawed unsanctioned machine thought. On Obsidian Pinion, Adrian Kessler stood in the tank room's upper mezzanine, palms braced on a bronze guardrail as sensor decks flooded with relayed acknowledgments. Each, pingback, appeared as a green glint on her retinal HUD, dots of clandestine life winking on across 12 jump corridors. For a moment, she felt like a lighthouse keeper counting distant lanterns in storm fog. 1 for Voss Cradle, 2 for Magenta Spire, 3 for the ragpicker colony orbiting the dead star Marrow Sea. Masato Grimm emerged from the lift tube carrying a thermovac and 2 cracked tin cups. He poured without asking. The brew smelled like jet fuel perked with mint, re-steeped leaves from the thawed hydro beds. Coldroom tallied 31 friendly beacons, he said. "That's triple the number on any old resistance map." Adrian took a swallow. The scald shocked her palate alive. "Means the fringe kept secrets even from Earthspine." "Good." Masato nodded toward the mezzanine's grated floor where their Leviathan envoys, saw the scar, silent eyes, stood speaking with deck chiefs over projected schematics. "They want to cut the drift in half." Adrian raised a brow. "They'll phase-spine a slip rail down the station's axis, fuse it to Sentence's relay lattice. Turn us into a pivot hinge for micro-jump artillery. 3 hours ago Pinion was a relay shack. By tomorrow it's basically a door." "Doors swing both ways," Adrian murmured. Masato's expression darkened. "Hence the other ask. Deorbit every Dominion hull within 3 million clicks. If it fails containment protocols, scuttle. Adrian considered the glimmering wreck field outside, the salvage economy, the memory tombs. Melting them would starve dozens of fringe clans of barter scrap. Yet leaving reactive eclipsers adrift where an enemy might anchor skip ghosts again was worse. She set the cup aside. Launch tugs, broadcast salvage amnesty. Whatever hulls can thrust out under their own spin get a 15-hour grace, she said. The rest? Torch them. Masato saluted with the thermovac. The Empire's archaeologists will weep. Across the drift, tug crews powered by the promise of debt forgiveness cut cables and lit engines. Sections of twisted armor, some bearing still legible imperial proverbs, flared under plasma torches. Hollow preachers on illicit bandwidths cried that ghosts were being freed. Weld sparks looked like souls ascending. Less mystic types just thanked the gods of vacuum that radiation leech plates would stop bleeding them in their sleep. One shard, though, the size of a football field, bristling with half-dormant oracle sensors, refused to die easy. When torch drones scored its outer plating, embedded failsafes coughed awake and began spooling a tight-beam data stream directly into deep dark. Squad intercepted the security feed, iconography tagged Missionary Singularity /CYPHTIRB. Silent Eyes broke protocol to speak aloud. His voice was hoarse from disuse, vowels sanding consonants, Dominion confession machine. Burns data into quantum sand, hides coordinates inside cosmic background. Adrian's blood chilled. Destination target? Wherever loyalists still pray. Sentence's dorsal hanger disgorged a missile sleek, no warhead, just a casket of gluttonous code. It lanced the shard, splintering plates, saturating every circuit with Viric fractals. The data stream collapsed mid-syllable, final message truncated to static that sounded almost like a sob. 8 hours into Operation Iron Sky Phase 2, the skip rail spine locked with Pinion's keel. The delicate interface was executed by Saldiskar's work gang. They sang while welding, a polyphonic chant whose refrains referenced orbital periods and terrible winter mornings on ruined Earth continents. Sparks fell like captive constellations, melting into vessel skin. When the last joint cooled, Sentence broadcast a low-frequency hum. Pinion's deck lights pulsed in answer, as if two severed halves of a heart found each other. Adrian checked station load graphs. Power draw spiked, but thermals remained within safe lines. Sentence's exotic drive shunted waste heat into a pocket dimension accustomed to harsher fires. Classified science beyond her pay grade, but the numbers obeyed. Subspace coefficient stable, cold room chirped. Rail pulse ready. Test fire, she authorized. A soundless quake rippled through the drift. External monitors showed nothing visible, but macro distortion sensors logged a microjump event spanning exactly 11 micradians. Space folded, unfolded, leaving behind only the faint scent of ionized vacuum. A success. The hinge worked. Elsewhere, across the Empire's splintering map, dominoes fell. On the water moon Seer Ever, Governor Tekka's broadcast a plea for reinforcements. The answer, bounced through a dozen laggard channels, arrived as pirate laughter and the echo of a semicolon drawn in asteroid dust. On Colon Prime, a mutiny turned Naval Academy dorms into barricaded communes. Calligraphers painted no more dots on marble colonnades, right under bronze statues of forgotten admirals. The Empress, whose public name was now redacted by her own secretariat to avoid mimetic ridicule, retreated to her orbiting palace, ordering kinetic bombardment on any planet that so much as flicked power into unauthorized nets. Yet her dreadnoughts found their rail towers glitching. Guidance systems ate recursive loops courtesy of carbon dog code donated by some unknown benefactor. Masato's bet. Gray water. Missiles spiraled into harmless upper atmospheres. Orbital rods crashed into uninhabited tundra. Imperial terror lost its punctuation. With the hinge live, Sentence's crew requested permission for spiral operation. Short-hop insertion teams using the rail to appear simultaneously at 3 Dominion comm hubs. Slice archives. Ghost back before alarms resolved. Adrian reviewed their op plans, schematics thick with red arrows, and signed off. Semicolon led the first hop. She watched the departure from command tank room. 16 black armor vectors aligning on the rail platform. A thunderless flash, gone. Telemetry showed them exit 3 light seconds away inside a lattice of comm satellites. 11 minutes later they returned, armor charred, carrying 2 cube drives smoldering with stolen algorithms. Masato scanned the drives. His eyes widened. These are Empire census ledgers system-wide. Names, tribute routes, slavery quotas. Everything. Adrian stiffened. Released a lighthouse? Saldiscar shook his head. Cure it first. Raw ledger can kill. Some victims no longer live. Naming them opens wounds. Silent Eyes gently placed a palm to the cube, as if quieting a bomb. Adrian exhaled. Trauma stewardship, another front in the war. While analysts triaged the data, Sentence's skip vessel parted from Pinion and slipped starward with a 2-ship escort. The courier frigate Historiography and a skeletal Dominion corvette recently surrendered by its own crew. Their mission: seed hinge relays at outer shell coordinates, expanding the mesh. If even half the plan lattice formed, humanity's run-on sentence would sprawl across 3 sectors, too entangled for any empire to excise. Half a day later, Historiography pinged an emergency code. Adrian rushed to cold room. Holo display jitter video. Relay buoy number 7 shredded. Escort corvette split ventral to keel. Interdictor mines, old Dominion tech but deployed with fresh cunning. Silent Eyes whispered, Empire discovered our script. Masato compiled vector traces. Impact geometry pointed toward a dwarf moon called Whale's not classified astrophysics lab turned black site. Surveillance indicated unusual energy blooms there days prior. Adrian smelled trap and opportunity nested together. Spiral team 2, she asked. Semicolon answered, face unreadable. We jump. Burn the knot or unravel it. Preparations began. Carbon dogs spun new spools, superstring nets designed to garrote quantum vaults. Masato tuned the rail. Adrian pinned a short note to Hope Station. Keep the men alive. Our air will still need sweeter breath. Pre-jump. Semicolon approached Adrian alone. Under visor glow, her tattooed brow formed a question mark. When we pull Empire's books apart, she said, what rises after sky breaks? Adrian searched ceiling struts as if answers etched there. Maybe something messier than we like. Freedom's grammar isn't tidy. She met Semicolon's gaze. But no more forced silences. Semicolon considered, nodded solemn approval, then strode to the platform. Rail pulse disgorged the team inside Whale's knot. A lattice of mirrored hex spires over a mantle of sickly blue glow. Automated defenses spat grav lances. Carbon dogs zipped nets. Turrets strangled mid-pivot. Semicolon drove her squad into the lab's spinal core. Found cryovaults stacked with proto-soldiers, clones engineered from subjugate species, spliced with Dominion monarch genes. The next generation of Emperor's fists. Masato watched live feed from cold room. Heart in throat, he mirrored the kill commands to sentences databanks. Earth's own dark programs had once dreamt similar horrors. He whispered apology to ghosts past and keyed null bio. Vaults ignited into frostfire. The team exfiltrated under collapsing domes, skip-hopping back to hinge edge with seconds to spare. Mid-return burst, Masato saw Semicolon stagger. Armor breach, needle of dark matter from failing portal tore her abdomen. She made the last step through rail, then collapsed on platform. Medtech swarmed. Adrian sprinted down, kneeled. Semicolon's blood, rich, bright, alive, coated her gauntlets. Hold, Adrian pleaded. The envoy's eyes fluttered. She pressed data wand into Adrian's palm. Sentence carries on, she breathed. Tattoo semicolons on her brow glimmered under fluorescent glare. A final wink of punctuation, then dimmed. Silence fell, a heavy, reverent. Silent Eyes closed his comrades' lids, backed away, fists trembling. For 20 minutes no orders left tank room. The station's systems hummed, ignorant of sacrifice. Finally Adrian rose. She slotted the blood-smeared wand into command port. Wordless code bloomed, relay coordinates for next hinge nodes, plus a parting note. Teach the Empire what clashes sound like between clauses. She activated broadcast. Lighthouse caught the packet, amplified it with pulse choir protocol, a chorus of thousands chanting one line, half sorrow, half iron vow. Her pause is our breath. Around the fringe, liberated comm hubs replied by painting fresh semicolons across their mast towers. Masato reread the Grokyu. Partial grid complete, casualties rising, resolve unbroken. He whispered to Adrian, we run on. Yes, she said, I still glassy. But now we underline. Later, in the now quiet mezzanine, Adrian planted a single mint sprig into a recycled cryo cartridge, set it beside the guardrail. Steam from cooling welds fogged the leaf. She poured a capful of that jet fuel mint coffee across soil as libation, muttered, for semicolon. Outside, sentence unfurled a black ribbon, part sail, part memorial banner, catching solar wind. The vessel angled toward horizon's edge, next on Empire maps. Pinion's hinge glowed violet, energy building for its longest pulse yet. In the yawning dark beyond, stars rearranged themselves into future grammar, each nova's flicker another clause awaiting a brave conjunction. The hinge pulse ripped through space-time like a comet's spine, carving open a violet wound that spat obsidian Pinion's insertion team straight into horizon's edge orbital plane. 10 seconds of afterimage lingered, an aurora of mathematics, before the fabric knitted shut, leaving only the staccato flash of railgun tracers and the bruised hush of vacuum. Adrian Kessler tracked it all from a standing holotank already awash with casualty projections. Sentence's black memorial ribbon, still fluttering in solar tide after semicolon's fall, had been recalibrated into a quantum antenna. Every shockwave, every heat plume bounced through its weave, hitting her board in living color. The operation clock read +00 to 01 to 07, and already 7 micro-objectives ticked from amber to green. Weapon emplacement delta neutralized, Palace dreadnought shield node severed, ex-slave barracks atmosphere locks popped open. The run on sentence advanced. Silent Eyes led the point assault now. He wore Semicolon's fallen gauntlets, sigils still wet-etched with her air blooms of blood, and his voice crackled across the hinged net like sand scouring steel. Grammar storm in progress. Fetus clauses. Masato Grim fed him coordinates. Carbon dogs rode the beacons, spooling skeins across palace hull curvature. Dominion flag shredded half the drones, but each shredded dog detonated a data scream that warped local grav filters. Flak turrets burped themselves blind. Through those spasms, Silent Eyes phalanx sprinted, boots kissing hull then rebounding into void. Momentum turned into murderous ballet. Inside the palace, Dreadnought. Once the Empire's floating reliquary, chandeliers of frozen plasma still hung from vaulted ceilings, remnants of the Empress's Starfall decor. Servitor acolytes shuddered behind antique breastplates, powerless as spiral sappers carved glyph-shaped charges into colonnades. When the first pillars fell, the shock carried centuries of arrogance with it. Marble split into fossilized pride. Yet the Empress herself was not in retreat. Her final citadel, a core yoke wrapped in 10 concentric shields, sat at Horizon's heart. Live intel showed her personal guard splicing fresh code into palace reactors, last stand protocol solar tongue. Translation: she would turn the dreadnought into a miniature star rather than yield. Adrienne's lips hardened. If she ignites, every liberated settlement within 3 AU will drown in radiation. Options? Masato asked. Rewrite the star before it's born. She pinged a deep archive file, Project Whalesong, an outlawed offside algorithm capable of inverting fusion harmonics. No time to vet ethics. She sent it. Silent Eyes received the payload mid-breach. In the collapsed cathedral corridor, he paused by a shattered icon of Dominion's first warlord, brushed dust from the plaque, then snapped a data rod against stone. The Whalesong code bled into palace lattice. Reactors groaned in confusion. Ignition harmonic flipped. Cooling loop screamed. Fire became swallow. In 30 seconds, the dreadnought's sun in the womb chilled to neutron hush. But cooling shock lines ripped Dexerono open. Thousands of tons of regal armor peeled back like wet bark, exposing the Empress's throne dais to raw cosmos. Adrienne's cams caught her at last, the ruler who renamed herself Vox Magna, but fringe chatter now mocked as the censor. She floated amid debris, robes billowing, adamant eyes catching sentence hinge glare. Silent Eyes confronted her across vacuum. No words. He raised Semicolon's gauntlet, fingers unfurling once. A gesture half invitation, half verdict. Vox Magna spat a bolt of compressed photonics. The gauntlet's lattice drank the beam, diffused it into star dandruff. She screamed fury audible even through silent space, implants flaring sonic shards that crackled on open comms. Adrienne opened global channel. Empress, stand down. Your empire is punctuation dead. Barbarians cannot end syntax. Vox Magna roared. She tapped a glyph etched onto her breastplate. Across Horizon's orbital grid, dormant war toys flickered. Asteroid-sheathed mines, forgotten by Dominion accountants but never disarmed. Masato's threat board spiked crimson. Sentence's bridge responded first. Captain Daria Hawthorne, voice calm as Moonsnow, ordered magsail inversion. The black ribbon tightened, became a whip of gravity-anchored graphene. One by one it lashed outward, snagging mine signatures, dragging them into hinge folds where they blinked out of existence, dumped into far-thrown void well beyond any hab zone. 80 mines neutralized in 9 seconds. The remainder tried to detonate, but Carbon Dog Ghost code had already slipped into their timers, turning atomic fury into confetti fireflies. Vox Magna's eyes widened as her final gambit evaporated. Silent Eyes closed distance, landing upon her graph stilts, knees bent like a prayer reversed. He deactivated helmet so she could see human flesh, the face of her nightmares remade. His expression held grief rather than triumph. End of sentence, he said, voice carved from stone. She drew a microblade of condensed void. He caught her wrist, twisted. The blade shattered into black snow. With his free hand, he placed Semicolon's pauldron, still bearing faint blood, against her chest. Remember our pause, he whispered. Then he let her drift. She sagged, throat silent, as spiral marines bound her in polymer nets. Across Dominion space, node by node, command chains faltered, loyal captains seeing their sovereign captured live through palace telemetry. Some powered down weapons, others aimed at each other in paranoia. Many simply wept. The fracture became collapse. Back on pinion, Adrienne steered salvage graphs to humanitarian overlays. We turn siege into seed, she told Masato. Every freed moon gets power, water, books. Greywater flagged a call. Their envoy, a woman shimmering in liquid mirror mech, congratulated the Concorde, offered deep-water engine patents, but hinted at a price, a seat at first syntax charter above all fringe voices. Adrienne countered. Semicolon died for plural futures, not new thrones. Negotiations paused, cold courtesy masking sharpened knives. Yet the larger galaxy inhaled possibility. On SYX dunes, children etched semicolons into sand seas so vast they showed on orbital scans. On battered Dominion academies, Archivists held bonfires for censored texts, then printed them anew illuminated with margin art of sentences ribbon. Adrian convened the Charter Council inside Pinion's Deck 5 greenhouse. Representatives arrived via hinge from dozens of worlds. Vat'ari sky dancers, Titan ice monks, the ragpicker mayor wearing a crown welded from shattered oracle shards. They gathered beneath mint-fragrant fans, Semicolon's gauntlet set in clear resin at table's heart. Silent Eyes took her empty chair, refused any title. Draft language began. Let it be written and run on witness that no clause shall cage voice. Greywater balked, too diffuse, not enough enforcement. That Ari proposed empathy tribunals. Ragpickers demanded salvage tariffs. Titan monks inserted silence quotas, moments where network chatter must cease to honor those lost. Debate spiraled, but no fist flew. Across 3 suns' worth of argument, they discovered grammar of coexistence. Messy, contradictory, alive. When final pinstroke set, Adrian stepped back. 200,000 characters carved onto polymer scroll, a living document dubbed First Syntax. Lighthouse pulsed it outward, not as edict but as invitation. Whoever signed would share hinge mesh, medical libraries, seed vaults. Whoever refused would still receive lullabies, because humanity's new arrogance was believing kindness more viral than fear. On the palace remnant, Vox Magna sat in restraint pod, gazing at the stars she once catalogued as possessions. A single mint leaf, gift from Pinion's beds, lay on her tongue. She tasted bittersweet coolness and, for the first time, listened to a broadcast she did not control, a choir of billions reciting Semicolon's pause. She closed her eyes. The galaxy sounded like wine through shattered domes. Sentence folded its sails, docking tip first into the growing hinge again. Captain Hawthorne hailed Adrian, edge secured. Where to next? Keeper. Adrian smiled at the title, Keeper of Doors. We chase the silence still hiding between stars, she answered. And write louder. Outside, Pinion's new mint sprig unfurled a second leaf. Horizon's edge sunrise bled amber across debris-free lanes. A young technician painted a fresh semicolon on hull plating, then added a looping underline, their own flourish. No supervisor scolded. Punctuation was communal now. From the galaxy's rim to Earth's resurrected seas, run-on voices prepared the next stanza. Empires end with periods. Concords begin with conjunctions. The iron sky broke, revealing infinite blank pages hungry for words. And humanity, scarred, stubborn, unbowed, picked up the pen. The sky over the reclaimed capital of Colon Prime simmered in liquid brass, clouds ionized by orbital yard plasma as the first Concord relief barges settled onto the starport's ruined tarmac. Children clung to rooftop ledges, cheering each contrail. Poets on cracked balconies scratched metaphors about phoenixes wearing steel feathers into shards of plaster. Kiosks and dust ribbon alleys hawked mint leaf tea brewed after Adrian's greenhouse recipe. Pinion's small agricultural miracle already migrating across worlds faster than broadcast schematics. Beneath the carnival surge another current pulsed. The Dominion's final splinter fleets had not surrendered, only scattered. Admirals vanished into shadow channels with pathogen drones, half-finished singularity shells, and the last cult engineers loyal to a throne that now survived only in propaganda loops. Rumors spoke of these war barons converging around an abandoned behemoth forge called Cedar Vault, hidden inside the rogue magnet rip currents of the Calf Triad, intent on casting a single doomsday punctuation, just punctum. A comma-shaped megastructure able to drive a gravitic spear through any hinge relay and tear the mesh apart in chain reaction. Concord analysts called the prospect period collapse. One strike, everything stops. Sentence, patched but still bleeding scorch marks. Could manage one more long burn skip. Adrian called an emergency synod under the mint-scented greenhouse. Greywater's envoy urged an orbital glass strike. Silent Eyes refused. Gene banks of conquered species lay inside the forge. After 8 hours of argument, Adrian ended debate. A surgical breach to rescue hostages and sabotage the weapon. Worst-case measures only if they failed. 3 days later, sentence, 2 rehab Dominion skiffs and Greywater's stealth corvette Argent Doubt slip-jumped into Calf Triad. Cedar Vault rose like a planetary rib. 9 interlocking rings around a cyclopean core, auroras crackling along city-sized dynamos. At each vertex, glimmer shell foundries birthed comma-shaped spars for the punctum. Carbon Dog anti-flux cages ferried spiral squads through lethal eddies. Silent Eyes led the vanguard toward the Gravlands crystallizer while a second unit hunted the gene towers. Mid-approach Argent Doubt betrayed them, jamming the escorts and firing boarding pods into Ring 6. Greywater meant to seize, not destroy, the punctum. Silent Eyes split his force, half to the crystallizer, half continuing the rescue. Adrian streamed century-old civil schematics to guide them through corridors alive with magnetic ghosts. In the forge heart, the embryonic Aegis punctum floated, a blackstone comma threaded with white-hot singularities. Greywater Marines held the bridge. Their mirror envoy drove Dominion glyphs into control desks, racing to finish the sequence. Silent Eyes confronted her across the span, raising Semicolon's blood-marked gauntlet. Fire and wire erupted. Adrian, watching from Pinion, injected an outlaw Dominion him algorithm that paralyzed indoctrinated soldiers. Silent Eye subdued them, stopping to him before it harmed his own. He fixed Semicolon's pauldron to the dormant comma core as memorial, then set thrusters to jettison it into deep halo when the vault collapsed. Spiral sappers quantum ported the towering gene banks to Pinion's cold holds, stealing entire species back from extinction. Vault failsafes triggered, rings ripped apart in magnetic storms. Sentence held position long enough for the last team to hinge out. Silent Eyes leaping aboard as the Aurora engines died behind him. Greywater's crippled corvette drifted powerless in a graphene ribbon leash. Tribunals followed. Greywater's counsel apologized. Its rogue envoy faced joint custody. Concord's charter, First Syntax, gained a new clause forbidding ownership of any weapon capable of silencing every voice. Weeks of debate ended bloodlessly beneath mint leaves and dripping condensers. Broadcast across the quadrant, First Syntax arrived on worlds still weighing revolt. Some signed immediately, others listened in secret while despots withered under citizen songs. No universal peace, some punctuation marks stayed contested, but each new warlord met united run on resistance. Years later, the serious drift smelled of coffee and compost. Obsidian Pinion had grown into a hinge garden of solar petals, trellised haberings, and libraries carved from old war rooms. In its plaza, a sculpture spun, a black comma forged from cedar vault scrap embraced by a silver semicolon. Children chased its shadow, the plinth red paws, don't stop. Occasional gray glints still haunted the horizon. Whenever they appeared, sentence or successors like commas, breath, and conjunction rose from hinge moorings, silent guardians reminding the cosmos that Earth's grammar class never adjourned. Adrian, older and soil-stained, watched each departure from a greenhouse catwalk, mint blossoms swaying in recycled breeze, hinges pulsing deep below. She whispered, "Run on." Beyond her breath, the stars kept writing stories infinite, sentences unending, humanity's ink indelible.